It's like the old Green Bay power sweep. It's very simple.
Turning to a story about a top set of Republicans with detailed plans to steal elections. And it's the news tonight because these same top Republicans are the ones sharing their own detailed plans. It's kind of like a coach releasing their own secret playbook. But in fact, this story also takes a page out of an epic NFL playbook. Trump White House vet Steve Bannon is indicted and awaiting trial for hiding evidence about his January 6th plotting. Now one of his very own accomplices, Trump vet Peter Navarro, is leaking their own January 6th plans, detailing the scheme to try to help Trump stay in power despite his loss. Navarro calls all of it, in his view, the perfect plan. He has a new book that recounts how they wanted to rally congressional Republicans to interfere with certifying Joe Biden's win. Now, ultimately, 147 members of Congress did vote against the standard practice of certifying that win. Navarro likens the whole effort to Hall of Fame coach Vince Lombardi's legendary play, the Green Bay Sweep, citing the goal of creating a chaotic process that would yield 24 hours of televised hearings. Now, for the Green Bay Packers, the sweep was generally considered unstoppable. For these Trump fans invoking it, not so much. They failed to delay the planned certification on January 6th, even amidst the related insurrection. Their playbook aimed at adding time and public attention on these election complaints for Trump, which they thought would pressure Mike Pence and get him to ultimately join what would have been an illegal coup. Now, Navarro says they didn't even, in his view, quote, need protesters or the insurrection. They just needed more Republicans in Congress willing to attack the lawful outcome of the election. In other words, and again, he's saying this, they just needed more authoritarians and would-be dictator supporters in our government. Obama campaign veteran Chai Komanduri says the whole comparison here is revealing because the Green Bay sweep is not about strategy. Some sports techniques are, but in contrast, it was always about pure power on the field, where the opposition realizes the sweep is coming, but they cannot stop it. Komanduri says that matches the Republican Party playbook on brazenly using its power to kneecap voting rights or put Trump loyalists in posts so they might cheat in the next election, and thus show power and dominance by undermining democracy in an open fashion, he argues. And, of course, none of this is very original. Turns out, Komanduri points out, Navarro's only echoing other Republicans who invoked the exact same play, like Gingrich, when he was Speaker. And while Navarro is telling his version of the story now, there's also evidence of how Bannon was talking at the time, contemporaneously, as the lawyers would say. Here was Bannon before the insurrection. Actually, we found this of him speaking there on the fateful morning of January 6th.
So I keep saying the mantra, you call the play, now run the play, right? It's like the old Green Bay power sweep. It's very simple. It's very, just one thing leads to another, very logical, and a victory is affirmed.
And now we turn to someone that we are indebted to for some of the points raised, the man I just quoted, a deep dive conversation that only occurs here on a special day here on The Beat. Even in the holidays, it is still known as Che Day. It is named after our next guest. That's kind of implied, isn't it, Che? Political strategist Chai Komanduri, a veteran of several presidential campaigns, including the Obama campaign. Happy holidays. Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you, Ari?
I'm good. We just quoted you. Walk us through this. Some of it seems a little bizarre, but some of it seems really important.
Yeah, look, the Green Bay sweep is one of the most famous plays in the history of the NFL. The big idea that Vince Lombardi had was a play that basically the defense knew was coming. However, you could not stop it. There was nothing you could do to stop the Green Bay sweep. John Madden talks about in the second Super Bowl how demoralizing it was for the Oakland Raiders, that they could not stop this play that was being run over and over and over again. And this is exactly how Republican philosophy and Republican strategy works, particularly in the Trump era. We all know what Trump is going to do. There are no secrets as to what play Trump is going to run next. The issue that we have as Democrats and as people who care about democracy is how do we stop it? And I think what Steve Bannon was saying, what Peter Navarro was saying, what Newt Gingrich was saying was that what we want to do is telegraph all our moves ahead of time and then watch as our opponents become demoralized with their inability to stop it. We're seeing this with voting rights across the country, where governors and Republican state legislators are doing everything they can to make sure that the next election goes their way, that Trump loyalists are in place, and that our democracy is potentially in tremendous threat and peril.
So, in a way, it seems like they're telling on themselves, or they're confessing. But in another way, you're arguing that while that might be morally dubious, we should not confuse that with outright stupidity, because you're saying they want to actually move the center of gravity, not only among hardcore right-wing Republicans, but among the rest of their potential supporters and others in American society towards what is basically a creeping authoritarianism.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, as long as it's not a secret and everybody sees it coming, people are more accepting of it. I mean, as Gopal said, the bigger the lie, the more likely people are to believe it. A big part of that is telegraphing the lie, making sure that everybody knows it, people keep repeating it, and the more people repeat it, the more likely they are to basically accept the lie and the preconditions behind it.
Chai, leave it to you to bring little Goebbels into our holiday season.
It was not my intention, but I want to wish everybody happy holidays and a Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Well, we laugh through the tears, as they say in some societies. It's a Russian saying, among others. But you are speaking to the union of propaganda with oppressive or authoritarian governments. In other words,
right.
It doesn't work as well, or at least the oppression does not take hold as easily in a society that still has a real grip on reality and fact-checking. And that is why you see, and you made one historical reference, there are many others where lies and propaganda are central to defeating people from that which they would otherwise often prefer, which is self-government rather than living under tyranny. Chai.
Correct. Yeah, and one of the things is it's not tyranny if you don't know it's tyranny. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing with the kinds of play that Navarro and Bannon are talking about. If we do it in advance, if people are equipped and accepting of what has to be done, then it will be done. Obviously, if state legislatures keep people from voting, if they put barriers that keep American citizens and make it harder for them to vote, it's a way of basically selecting the people who are voters ahead of time. And it also helps make sure that their political goals are achieved with the least amount of interference. Look, I mean, I've been in Democratic politics a long time. It's never a secret as to what Republicans are going to do. What Republicans are going to do is very clearly telegraphed. The problem that Democrats always have is they can't seem to figure out exactly how to stop Republicans from doing what they're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, all fair. Because it's our end of the year, this is our last Chai Day of the year. I don't know if you've done the math, but that's a fact, Chai.
Correct.
Unless there's a Chai Day you know about that I don't. So given that we launched this segment this year, we've been reflecting on different things. I've heard from some viewers they appreciate your precision, the way you use the knowledge you have, the experience you have, and really tell us what's up. So I kind of wanted to zoom out with you here, big picture for a second. Let's just think back as we look over the whole year we've had. Before the beginning of the year, the January 6th insurrection, it was an almost simpler time when the world was just awaiting the incoming Biden era.
Right.
Team Biden moves into high gear, launching today on first steps for the new administration, including a new COVID task force, and turns the page on a new era.
Well, it's easier to be a parent this morning. It's easier to be a dad. It's easier to tell your kids character matters.
What was on the ballot here was decency and democracy and empathy. And Joe Biden is particularly well equipped for this moment.
That was the mood going into really a year ago today, November, December, January. When you, as a political expert, look at this year of politics and government, what are the big things that you think have changed?
Well, what Joe Biden has done is he has basically returned us to the pre-Trump normal. We live in a world where we no longer have to worry about the president doing mean tweets. We live in a world where we have a largely scandal-free administration, where an infrastructure bill is debated and passed and signed by the president with minimum fuss or drama or debate, or at least the debate is democratic debate. It's certainly not Twitter debate and insults back and forth of that nature. So he has really returned America back to a pre-Trump normal. I think the problem that Joe Biden has, and I think the problem that Democrats have, is we have not returned the world to a pre-pandemic normal. That is, I think, the big thing that is causing Joe Biden's polls to decline. That has been the biggest weight that he has endured. Everything that we're experiencing now, we certainly experienced during the Obama era, including Joe Manchin. I certainly remember Joe Lieberman being very much a thorn in Obama's side during the ACA debates. However, the issue that Joe Biden has is there's an expectation that we will return to a pre-pandemic normal, not just a pre-Trump normal.
Well, you know what Rick Ross says on the new album, Chai?
I do not, but I would love to know.
They're calling it pandemic, but it's really life.
Well, I think for Joe Biden and for Democrats, I think a lot of Americans do not want this to be their lives. And I think we do need to be aggressive about finding a roadmap out of the pandemic. You know, as I think your previous guest said, this might be the final throes of the pandemic. Let's hope for all of our sakes it certainly is.
Fair enough. We can hope towards the new year. Chai Komanduri, the last Chai Day of the year. Always good to see you. We have our shortest break of the hour now. It's just